Living fully alive in every way. You're listening to Relationship Prescriptions with Dr. Carol.
Welcome once again, friends. It's Dr. Carol, and this is Relationship Prescriptions. I have some friends with me today that I believe you will find so inspiring and encouraging. Pastor Mel and Diane Stauber, missions and outreach pastor at Celebration Church here in Georgetown, Texas. But that's just such a small part of your story. First of all, thank you both so much for being with us on the program.
It's our absolute privilege. Thank you for inviting us.
Yes, thank you very much.
Now, you have kids. Let's just start about finding a little bit about your family. And then we'll go on to your missions experience after that. So tell us a little bit about your family.
Well, we have two children. We have Rachel and Matthew. Rachel is 17, and Matthew is about to be 15 in about a week. He's going to have a birthday.
In the middle of teenage years.
Yes.
And that in itself could be a big challenge. But what I'd really like to focus on is the time that you and your family were missionaries in Shai, Mozambique, in Africa. Tell us how that came to be, first of all. I mean, that's out there, something many of our listeners may not even know where that is.
So Mozambique is a mirror image of Madagascar. So if you think in South Africa, go straight up, borders with South Africa, right across the Mozambican Channel, you'll find Madagascar. And there are no limas there, but we have a good time in Mozambique anyway. The way we got there is very simple. We were, as a church, were looking to plant a church down there. We had some folks that we were looking at sending down there, and I was privileged to take one of the teams that was looking into that situation. And just one of those trips, I was there and just felt like, we have the responsibility as Americans who are privileged, who have all the great things that we have a great responsibility to steward those things, as well as we're initiating our first international campus launch from Celebration Church. The other reality, knowing that the missions world is a very small world, and if we're going to do it, we're going to have to do it well, or else we're going to have a very difficult time in the future. And so was over there, felt just a strong desire to do that, and so
I have to cut you off there real quick. but 3 years prior to that, there was this. God kept preparing our heart prior to us going to Shai, and I knew that I had owned my own business at the time, and I knew that God was moving me more into a ministry role, and I knew that Mel and I were going to actually be working together, and so, but we didn't know what that looked like. So it was 3 years of trying to figure that out, and I really honestly thought it would be marriage ministry. Never ever thought.
And you guys have a lot to offer marriages, but yeah, going across the ocean, the other side of the world, that had to kind of be kind of rocking your world, right, in a lot of ways.
So we never thought it would be missions, but go ahead. Continue.
With the relationship, and this is the strength of the relationship and the power of an awesome wife is, I didn't have the courage to call her or even wait till I got back. I sent her a text from Africa and said, hey, I think we need to come do this work over here.
So, I received this text and I said, oh, honey, I will go wherever you are. And he said, no, I'm serious. I was like, oh no, what?
So I got back, we talked about it, we talked with our church leaders, and within 6 months we sold everything, got our kids out of school, we got all of our shots, and all of the support we needed to move to a place where we didn't know a person, didn't speak the language, didn't have a place to stay, didn't have a vehicle, but we just knew we were supposed to be there. And through the support of our local church, we were able to make a big difference.
How old were your kids when you first went over there?
So Matthew is 6 and Rachel is 9.
That must have been a big part of your thinking about, is this a good place for our family? Because that's a challenge for kids too. You can make the decisions, but your kids have to go along.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I know personally running through my mind is I just had to be obedient.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what God wanted us to do, and He was making everything line up. We were getting confirmation from people that this is what God wanted us to do, and actually the children were very excited to go. They were ready to start a new adventure, so that was another confirmation for us that it was okay. We're gonna go do this.
It was a confirmation and a deterrent. Before I ever talked to Diane, I was just looking around and looking at the big hills with nothing but bush on them, bush and sand. They don't even have animals in Mozambique. They killed them all out. And the kids were, I mean, honestly, the kids, they're just kind of run around without a whole lot of supervision, and there's no playgrounds, no daycare centers, no movie places. I mean, there is nothing of convenience for a family. And really what even the housing situation that we were to move into would at best be a very difficult situation, because you're dealing with a very hot climate with no air conditioning. Again, no outdoor equipment for the kids to play on. Mozambique also being the home of 7 of Africa's most deadly tin snakes. And so, having to keep all that in mind as we were thinking this through, and our kids they were a significant part of that decision. Absolutely.
Yeah. What was it like raising kids in that kind of environment? I can think, as parents, safety must have been one of your questions right from the start. I mean, physical safety and, cultural and even spiritual safety in that kind of an environment.
Yeah, safety was definitely an issue. I mean, there was many years that we just didn't sleep that much at night.
Yeah.
And so we did have to go in and really secure our home and make sure that we had dogs, and we put bars on the house, and just make sure that we were able to confine us into the house. So that was a big issue for us. But
when the sun went down, we shut up shop.
Yeah.
Everybody was inside, and we were close to the ocean, and we'd never let our kids go out by themselves to the ocean, even when they got older. And one of the things we had determined early in our kids' lives was that they just weren't going to do sleepovers. We weren't going to have people stay with us. Our kids were not going to stay with other people. I've been a counselor for too many years, knowing so many situations that all went bad simply because of an innocent sleepover.
Yeah.
And so carrying that into Africa, we didn't even want to send them out into an environment where it was a potential a bad situation. And so some of the English-speaking foreigners there, we had folks from England, from Denmark, from Amsterdam, from South Africa. So there was an English expatriate community there.
Sure.
And many of them when we first got there, had children. So there was a few children within that community that we could work with. But we never let our kids go out, and they gave us a hard time about that at times. Yeah. And every time we had that conversation, the simple thing that we would respond back to them was that, thank you for bringing this to our attention, because I would much rather have this conversation with you,
right,
rather than the conversation with you telling me I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. You did not send your kids away to boarding school. Some missionaries do. Talk about that decision to keep your kids with you rather than boarding school.
Well, I mean, I just felt like that, we were going to do it all together. I had somebody ask me a long time ago, when homeschooling started becoming more of a general thing to do.
Right.
If I'd ever homeschool my children, and I said, no way.
and here you are.
I know, and I've learned never to say that word. So there was no, I mean, we had heard some of our friends who were sending their kids away too, but I just never had peace about sending our children over to boarding school. And we've heard good stories, we've heard bad stories. So for us, our family, it was just what we do, we're going to do together.
Yeah.
And that was our motto.
Yeah.
Still is. What we do together.
Something that being in that environment, I can imagine was part of your thoughts. And I don't know whether this was intentional or not. But from my perspective, and I've never spent time as a missionary overseas, but at least in this culture, kids seem to grow up with such a consumer mentality. It's what can I get? What can people do for me? Being in that environment, growing up as missionaries in Africa, that would just be so foreign. And that could actually come across as a benefit if you parents as intentionally think about that. Talk about that perspective. Does that resonate at all? The difference between service and consumerism?
Yeah, our kids, when they return back to the public schools, some of their first comments was the level of immaturity of their peers and the level of consumerism. It's like, Dad, it's like they can never have enough.
Yes.
Why can't my friends just be happy with what they have? And it wasn't really being critical of their peers. It truly was from an innocent, I just don't get it. We grew up with kids who literally have nothing.
Yes.
And they were so happy. They were so good to be around, and we had a great time playing. And these are people who lived in grass huts with tin roofs. Many of them with dirt floors, and a house as big as a 10 by 10 room. And
a family lived there, not one person.
A family of 5
Wow.
would live in a place like that, and that was their world. At one point, Matthew had been in Africa. He was more African than he was American, and it just changed his perspective with that. And even today, and to having been back for almost 2 years, they still don't fit in with this culture, and they talk a lot about just the neediness, the emotional, the drama that takes place, and they're like, Dad, they just don't have any idea of what true pain is or what true suffering really is. So I just don't get it. Why are we in this place?
Yeah.
Here in America.
Any little stories? I want to bring some ideas for parents that I think your story can illustrate. But first, just any little bits of things that happened as you were, raising your kids in that environment.
Traditions.
Yeah, it was a time for us to make new traditions. So we always wanted to try to make the best of everything. So we included the kids on, so Christmas was not in wintertime, it was in summertime now.
Wow. Yeah.
So it was a chance for us to, let's make new traditions at Christmas. And then we always did a family night. Every Friday night was family night, and we would close all the windows, and it would just be us, and we'd have popcorn and candy, and that would be our tradition of our together time and our time to kind of little detox from being around everybody as well.
Still do it today.
Yeah.
Every Friday night. It's still. And let me tell you, if we skip that family night, our kids let us know.
Yeah.
So we can't skip family night. So, yeah.
Great. Now, most of our listeners are not going to be raising their children in a third world country, such as Africa, but all parents are raising their children in challenging situations. There's things that all parents face that are coming against their kids. And I'd like maybe if you can just reflect a little on what your experience raising your children in that environment might say to parents who are feeling the stress and the burden of bringing kids up in our culture where there may be more material things, but the dangers may be even greater in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So the the first thought in raising our kids in Africa probably would not have been a whole lot different than how we raised them here. One of the things that we determined again early on is we will never allow the busyness of life to overtake our family. And that's a decision, you know, in a financial way, we don't make as much as we could. And that's a decision that we made. We have made a decision. We won't get in debt.
Yes.
And when our kids were young and they were involved in some of the activities out in the community, the other choice that we made, and it was a hard choice, was that you get to choose one thing at a time. You're not going to be involved in band and music and sports and all these clubs that they have going on, so much so that everything that we are doing revolves around your activities in life. Our kids are a part of our family. They are not the center of our family. So we determined that early on.
Yes.
And it is on the mission field. Oh my gosh, the time it takes just to live life.
Yeah.
To go to the grocery store and you got 10 things on your list, and if you walk away with 3 of them, you know it's a great day.
Wow. Yeah.
But the busyness of life on the mission field had the potential of being so much more incredibly busy than it is here, because you're on your own.
Yes.
And we still had to make the sacrificial decision that says, you know what, we would rather grow at a slower rate in the church and in the sponsorship program. We would rather put less time into that and invest more into our kids, and us be the ones that are raising our kids, not the society around us. And because of that, we still, I tell you, I don't understand, honestly, Dr. Carol, people who have problems with their teenagers, and they talk about what a horrible time their teenage years. Honestly, I don't get it, because we have such a great time with our kids. This is the best time of our life with our kids these years. Absolutely love it.
Well, and I would also add too that we always had a meal together. Mm-hmm. I mean, when it was time for dinner, we sat down and we had conversation, and we didn't have any of our devices with us. It was our time to find out, well, how is your day going? What did you learn about today? Or, I mean, it was really our time to converse. The other thing, too, that I would say is, when Mom and Dad are good, too. I mean, we went through a lot of stresses.
Sure.
And there was many times that we both didn't quit on the same day. And so I think that really kind of helped out a lot. But, as long as Mom and Dad are doing good, I think everything else is also, I mean, that your kids know, hey, it's okay. We can get through whatever.
We had fun with some of the things we did. We would go in South Africa. It was about 10 hours away from where we were, to go to this nature park, and we get to see the animals. The kids got to ride on top of an elephant, and so there's just many unique things in Africa living there. The kids got to experience. So we started putting together this book, things you hear in Africa that you'll never hear anywhere else, like, hey, watch out for that zebra crossing the road. The elephant's flapping its ears. Mom, get out of the way. So why did you feed the giraffe the carrot? Why did you do that?
Oh, my goodness. What I hear from you two is that you were intentional right from the start. And it didn't so much matter that whether it was Africa or whether it was, United States, that you had a goal for your family, for your marriage, for what you wanted your kids to grow into. And you took ownership of that. You were intentional about going in that direction together as a family. I think that's something that many families don't, but that really stands out. And it's just listening to you, I think that's why your kids are your friends today, and why you have that kind of connected family.
And I do believe it would have been like that no matter what.
Yeah.
And one of the great things about them growing up over there is not just being in a area where there's not a lot, but there's so much cultural sensitivity that is discussed today. And I grew up in New Mexico, where there's a high Hispanic population, and growing up with Hispanics and blacks and Asians, that was my world.
Yes.
And I didn't know any different. And, for our kids growing up in that environment, there is no racial sensitivity. It's,
people are God's children, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Well, and the cool thing about Mozambique is they celebrated the differences. I mean, they truly celebrated. They didn't use that as an opportunity to push somebody down or try to make fun of somebody. But, the way the Mozambican people celebrate their, even like a funeral, our kids being exposed to that, what an awesome thing. I mean, it's a 3-day event, so...
Wow, yes, yes.
And the weddings, oh my gosh, what an incredible event. That's the 3 or 4 day event. But, being able to celebrate that with the people, and it was never an us and them mentality. It was always a we.
Yes.
It's like, this is our family. And it's just, and so today, even, they're very sensitive to the kid that's sitting by herself or by himself, no matter their racial background. And so that I'm always hearing them talk about how they're reaching out and making that extra effort to go be with somebody because they understand what it feels like to be alone.
Yeah. I feel like we could talk, for 3 hours about this, but I want to end with this question. You got your kids involved in giving in ministry very early on, and being in Mozambique, that was almost a given. But in our culture, it seems like that's one of the things that parents would need to be intentional about. And maybe if you can just talk for a minute about the benefits to kids of getting involved in giving, just of themselves, whether that's in, a volunteering or a church kind of ministry, or just the way that can help young people grow up to be less self-centered. I mean, can I assume that? I mean, is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up taking clothes across the border to Juarez, Mexico, to an orphanage that my dad had a great relationship with the people over there. And then in New Mexico, he also worked with the Navajo population.
Right.
And it was one of those environments where it was family. It wasn't the white man doing something for the people. They all worked together. And so growing up in that situation, and now putting our kids into that very same situation, it is a very intentional effort that we have them do. So, like, we're part of Celebration Church, and our kids serve.
Yes.
They don't have an option. And that is our rule of the house. So you're part of the body of Christ. You serve. That's just what you do. And going to church, that's not an option. You will be there. You're going to serve one. You're going to attend another. And it has continued to expand their oversight, their overview of life in general. And so they're not thinking, and I don't hear them talk about, what can I do to make money? What can I do to be a big person in this world? But their bigger concern is, what can we do to help people? And how are we going to make a living that's going to employ people, or help missionaries on the field, or help the church, or even outside of the church, some of the organizations within the school clubs that go out and, like the Spanish club, going out and doing some things within the Spanish community and just helping people. It's a brilliant thing. It gets your eyes off of the me and onto the bigger picture. We probably all know that example of scribbling a little circle on a piece of paper and just focusing on that one thing, and then you expose the people to, hey, what's around the circle? And said, oh, okay, I get it. There's actually a circle on a piece of paper. And say, you still don't get it, because when you look around the room, there's a three-dimensional environment that you're in. Now that one circle, it's not that it's gone away, it's just has its proper place in the bigger environment, and that's what we're trying to instill in our kids.
Helping kids understand that they can make a difference, that their life can impact the world for the kingdom of God, all of that.
They're part of a community.
Yes.
They're not the community.
I love that.
Well, and I was going to say, too, that I think that the kids really, they understood family. And for our kids at their age, I believe that they really understood that they could stand up as leaders at the age that they are and be an example for people that, maybe they're insecure or maybe they're having, they feel like they can't have that leadership quality. And so that's what I noticed with our kids, and it's instilling in them too a chance to like help others. We need to come in and help others.
Understanding the impact they have on other people. Seems like that is not a given, and young people can grow up only thinking about how other people impact them. And you have given such great examples of helping your kids understand that their life impacts other people, and to focus on that in so many ways. Thanks so much, Mel and Diane. This has been really inspiring, and appreciate you sharing your experience and your stories. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Isn't that inspiring? If you're a parent, doesn't that encourage you to be intentional about helping your children grow to become people who think about contributing to their friends, their school, their church, to the kingdom of God? Being intentional about helping them grow into the kind of people that God wants them to be. I just found that so inspiring, and I hope you do too. If you'd like to get in touch with Pastor Mel and Diane, you can do so at celebration.church, or you can leave us a message on our website, and we'll be happy to forward your comment or question to them. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family. If you have a question or a comment, you can certainly leave me a confidential comment on our website on the contact page. It would also help us if you would comment or rate this podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps other people find the program as well. And until next time, may God bless you.